All right, everyone. Another exciting night for us here in the upper room. Uh, Tonight we have with us Dave Consalve, and I've been practicing saying that last name. Uh, we are looking forward to his testimony. As a matter of fact, David gave me an opportunity way back to share my testimony in Hyannis, as David's the president of the Cape Cod chapter of the Full Gospel Businessmen's Fellowship. And so, I'm excited to hear his story tonight, and I'm sure everybody else is too. So we're all listening very intently to what you have to share with us, David. So here we go. Please, you have the floor, sir.
I got the floor.
You got it.
Okay, very good. Well, let me pray first. And Lord, I thank you for this night and this opportunity to share my testimony for what you've done for me in my life, Lord. And I just give you thanks and praise. I pray for the direction and leading of the Holy Spirit. And I pray that this is a blessing to the people that hear, but also I want to bring glory and honor to you, Lord. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen and amen.
Mm.
I tell the guys in my chapter that they should have versions of their testimony, either 5 minutes or 2 minutes or 20 minutes. And this is what an opportunity to share a longer part of my testimony. And in Full Gospel, we used to have a thing. We used to wear sport coats and ties. And if a speaker was speaking a little too long and you were running the meeting, you could pull his coat and say, "That's enough. Time to stop." So I hope somebody will say, "Hey, that's enough." Because I do have an awful lot I want to share, but I don't know how God's going to lead this. And all I can say is that this is a love story. And this is a true love story. And I'm convinced the longer I walk with the Lord, that the most powerful force in the universe is love. And I won't preach about that, but think about how God created the universe so he could share it with his people. Well, I started out as a young lad, obviously, and I am originally from Quincy. I'm from an Italian family. I'm one of five. I'm number two. And you know the old Davis saying, "Number two, you try harder." Well, I guess I was that one that tries harder. So I started out. I was went to public school first, and then they had a parochial school in our town, our city. And I was one of the first to enter that school as a fourth grader. But prior to that, I was an altar boy. And so I had pretty close connection with, which I thought with religion. And that's really what it was. It was religion. I was very much brought up in that. My family was a church-going family. Anytime the door was open, we were there. If it wasn't just Sunday Mass, if there were novenas going on or whatever, we were there. And we did things as a family. So they gave us a very good foundation. Well, being a Italian, and my name is Consalve, there's a cardinal in history. His name was Ercole Consalve. He was a secular cardinal. If you can believe that, he was not a priest. And supposedly the story was told to me that he has left money in Rome, that anyone in the family that wants to study to be a priest, they can go to Rome and have a tuition paid education. Well, I thought when I was 12, 13 years old, that's what I wanted to do, was become a priest, because I looked at that as a carrot. There's an opportunity there, and I'm going to go for it if that's what God wants. And that's what I felt. Well, a little bit later on, I discovered that becoming a teenager, these girls are pretty nice to have around, and I'm not going to be celibate. Priest has to be celibate, and I don't want to do that, because I kind of like females in the species. So what I did after I graduated from high school, again, always doing everything, never missed Mass, and continued on that way. Had no relationship with the Lord, I might add, but it was religious. It was a religious occupation and kept me busy, and I liked it, and I just did it. Well, I come to find out, I decided I was not going to be a priest. I'm going to go to college to become a teacher. And I had an uncle who was a teacher, inspired me to do that. He was a history teacher, and I thought, well, I like history, maybe that's what I want to do. So I got to college and decided, well, I'll become a teacher. And then I realized after a while at school that there were 5 or 6 history majors for every other um, major. So I said, there's too many. So there was a shortage of elementary school teachers. I said, well, I'll change my idea from being a history teacher to becoming an elementary teacher where there's more jobs. Very practical thinking on my part. And so that's what I did. I was geared right to go towards that. Well, I was in school and I was working in a supermarket, and I met this young lady, and I met her when I was 16 and a half. And I did not have the nerve to ask her out at that age because I was kind of a little bit skittish about, squeamish about asking her out. She was the boss's daughter, in fact. And that kind of intimidated me a little bit. And I figured she's not going to want to waste any time with me. Well, then I got to be a junior in college, and we were in the bowling league of the store operated, we participated in. And I saw her again, and then I got up enough nerve to ask her out. Well, uh, things changed after those 3 years. And she said, yes, we'll go out. And we went out on our first date. I took her to a movie. And I had to call her 3 times that night because they kept asking me to work later. Well, guess what happened? We're still together after 51 years. After 3 weeks, I asked her to marry me, and she said yes. And so a year and a half later, after I graduated, we were married. Again, I want to underline that I was Italian, and I'm Italian. I'm the macho. The man is the boss. And we were married, and we're starting to have a family. And our oldest daughter is there, and my youngest daughter came along, and we were going to mass every Sunday. And suddenly the priest that was at the church where we went was transferred, no reason, just gone. And so I lost interest in going to church, and we both did, as a matter of fact. We stopped going to church. Jesus wasn't in my life yet, although he was there if and when I needed him. He was up on a shelf, whatever, take him down when you need him, that kind of thing. I can pray, and I know that he'll answer my prayer. But that was as far as my faith went. Didn't have very much. So about this time, Bibis is, a woman, and she's very, well, I want to say independent, but she has, abilities, and she wanted to move on in her life. And so she said, I want to get a job. And I was a school teacher, right? I had gotten a job as a teacher, and I'm working 4 part-time jobs as well as teaching full-time to provide for the family. And I thought that was what I should be doing. That was my job, quote unquote. Well, she said, I want to get a job. And I said, you don't need a job. You can stay home with the kids. So push comes to shove. She, sure enough, went out and got a little part-time job. And that really made me angry, because I figured she's challenging me. And well, about this time, I was really thinking about this. This isn't going to work. This marriage is kaput, although I looked at my parents. My parents were married for 53 years, and they were committed. And when I married Bibis, I said, I'm going to commit myself to you. And I was committed. My name starts with C. Commitment starts with C, so I'm going to be committed. But little did I know that the pressure was going to come on. That I saw it looked like separation time. It's like, this woman is not agreeing with me. Well, she decided the kids were getting a little bit older. She should go and try to find a church. The kids needed some kind of religious education. And I wasn't interested in my church, because the church was finished for me in the Catholic Church. I stopped going to church. My church was the golf course. On Sunday morning, I was there before the course opened up. A friend of mine, he and I used to go out. 7 o'clock, we'd be on the tee, and we'd play 18 holes of golf. And I didn't, again, as a macho, I didn't think anything about going out Friday nights playing poker with the guys, and it was all about me. I was the macho. So I'm playing golf every Sunday, and that's well, I'm very happy and content to do that. But meanwhile, Pivots is going around trying to find a church. Well, she finds this place, and she likes it. And sure enough, she gets involved in going to the church. She brings the girls there, and our son is born now, and he's about a year and a half old, and I stay home on Sunday to take care of him while they go to church. I don't get to play golf, but I still manage to play Saturday, so it worked out. All right, okay. Um, Somewhere along the line, we were back in the day. That was when we were like leftover hippies, and we did all natural food. It was all organic. Everything we ate was organic. And Vivitz used to buy her own wheat berries and grind the flour, make the flour, and she would make our own bread and granola and all that. We used to have everything everything was whole wheat. So in that time, she met a woman that operated the store where she used to buy the food. It was out of her house in Sandwich, and they were sitting in the house one day, and a woman came in and said, "Let's have a cup of tea." Well, that day, the woman that came took these two women, and they got born again. They heard the story about Jesus, and they became born again Christians. And little did I know that when she became born again, I knew something was different, but she wouldn't say what it was. She wouldn't tell me. So I just kind of, well, something's different here. And she kind of took a step back. Things were different. And I was quite puzzled about that. And I found out that she was praying for me. And when I found out, I hit the roof. What do you mean? What are you praying for me for? Am I that bad? You got to pray for me? Well, I guess I was, but I didn't see it for myself. And she said I wasn't that bad. But, as a Catholic, I thought I could do everything I could to earn my salvation. I was going to go to heaven because I did good things to help everybody. I was out. If somebody needed to be moved, I helped them move. If somebody needed something done, I did it. I helped them. I'm putting all these things in my basket to take that's going to earn my keep to go to heaven. Well, my brother, who was older than I am, who we used to have to drag out of bed on a Sunday to go to church to make the last mass, starts telling me about Jesus. He's gotten born again. He says, "Dave, you got to get born again." What is he talking about? Born again? I didn't understand any of that. Never heard that before. So he said, "You got to get a Bible." Well, I didn't have a Bible. What you don't need as a Catholic, you don't need a Bible. You go to church, and that's good enough, right? Well, that kind of piqued my curiosity, and I got a Bible asking the guy that was the teacher in the class next door to me, who was a Protestant minister, and I said, "What Bible should I buy if I'm a Catholic?" And so he told me, and I went out and bought the book. Well, I went out and I bought the book. I opened up the book. My name is David. Well, David wrote the Psalms. I knew that from my education, that David wrote the Psalms. So I opened up the book of Psalms and started reading the Psalms, and it was okay. It was just like another book. And I said, this is, forget. I just closed the book and put it aside. My brother said to me, "Dave, you really got to get born again." He says, "There's this group down on the Cape called Full Gospel Businessmen." He says, "There's a group in Hyannis and there's a group in Falmouth." Well, at that time, there was only the group in Hyannis. And I said, okay, I kind of put that aside, and I kind of forgot about that. I put the Bible aside, and I'm still doing that. And my wife's really involved in that Protestant church now. As a Catholic, I couldn't go to a Protestant church because all the Protestants were going to hell. At least that's what I thought. And if I stepped foot inside a church, Protestant church, any church, after not going to church for a few years, that the roof would open up and the lightning and thunder of God would strike me dead when I stepped across the threshold. Well, it turned out I went to the service. I took my son with me to the church, and he was about a year and a half old. It was Communion Sunday, And I snuck in the church, didn't think anybody saw me, which I was wrong because there was windows all over that place. And they saw me, and I went up on the second floor, and the communion comes by, and my son snatches the juice and swallows it. I said, oh man, I'm visiting here, and I'm going to be asked to leave because my son just, whatever, did something he shouldn't have done. You know, he just jug-a-lug the juice. But nobody got mad at me, and I was this is fine. It wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be, and the roof did not open up, and the thunder and lightning of God did not strike me dead. I said, okay, well, this isn't so bad. And so push comes to shove, I get a little bit more involved in the church myself. I start to go with them. I'm seeing that it's not such a bad thing. But again, I'm still living my life, my macho way, and nothing really has changed for me. But Bibis has definitely changed. She's now participating in a prayer group, and she's participating in a Bible study, and she's, you know, growing in the Lord. So I guess in a way, maybe I could see that there was a difference, but I didn't know what it was, and she still didn't explain anything to me. So anyway, I get a little bit more involved. And at that particular church, they had a barbecue every August, and they served 600 people. And the 600th meal was as warm as the first meal. And I was a member of the local Rod and Gun Club here, and we'd have a chicken dinner for 125 people. And when you got to the 125th person, the food was cold. So I said, I wonder how these guys did that. And the guy that was the head of the kitchen said, why don't you come next year and you can work with me in the kitchen and I'll show you how we do it. Well, that was the Lord putting out the fish hook. He's using the bait of the barbecue, the men's barbecue, to hook me. Well, sure enough, I got more involved in the church, and Viva said, there's another couple, they want to do the youth group and they need somebody to do the youth group. And okay, and then there was another teacher that I knew was in my school, and she went to that church. So we're going to do this as 5 people. We're going to do the youth group. So I said, okay, but I'm a teacher and I got to have some kind of course or go to a conference or something to learn how to deal with teenagers, because I was just elementary school. So there was it was called the Serendipity Workshop in Framingham, Mass, at a hotel or function room place. And we decided to go there to get information on how to deal with young people and teach them about the Lord. Now, come again, now, all I knew was I thought I knew it all. I thought I had it all already. So I thought I was the expert. I really didn't know anything. So we go to this meeting and we walk in the door. We're a little bit late. The meeting's already started. We walk in and there's a guy, a big tall guy, bushy hair, a bandana around his head, and he's got his hands up like this, and they're singing hallelujah. And I looked at Bibis and I said, these people are crazy. Get me out of here. Well, we didn't leave. We stayed because I needed the information, right? So we stayed. But that day, Jesus touched me, and he filled me up with a whole truckload of love. You know, I had couldn't explain it. I didn't know why this happened, but all of a sudden I'm just overflowing, bubbling out over with love. I was on a high. The next week after that weekend, I went to school and went to see my kids, and I said I loved them. The first time I ever said that to my classroom kids, and they looked at me and something happened. This guy's crazy. So that was the beginning of my changeover from old David to new David. But again, I was on that high for about 6 months. And then I came right down off of that because I didn't know it was Jesus. I didn't understand it. And I came down and it was right back into my old smutty stuff. I had my old collection of Playboys and things, penthouse magazines that I kept. And I said, well, you know, I went right back into that stuff. And I really hadn't made any real commitment, and I hadn't really gotten changed. But I knew that I was filled with love. So my brother brought that up again about full gospel. And as teacher in the school, there was a woman in her husband was a member, and she had a bumper sticker on her car that said, Jesus saves. I never heard that term before. Jesus saves. Saves what? Saves money in the bank? What? I didn't get this. So I said, what do you know about this Full Gospel group? She says, well, my husband's a member. Why don't you come? There's a meeting this Saturday. Why don't you come and we'll take care of your breakfast. So, okay. All right. I decide, okay, I'm going to do this because my brother had said this. And that seed was planted. And I went to that meeting, and Dibbets was with me, and we're sitting around a table, and there was nothing spiritual going on. A guy gets up in the meeting, and he's announcing there's a prayer meeting in Washington. It's called Washington for Jesus, 1980. And I said, well, no, that's something. I just was talking that, and we're sitting at the table, and I thought my heart started to pound, and I thought it was going to pop out of my chest, and I thought I was going to faint. And I said, Jesus, if this is of you, then I know I'm going to follow you the rest of the days of my life. But just to back up a little bit, what else led up to this was our son was almost 3 now, and we were going camping, and he fell off the pickup truck as I was loading it up. And we went to Maine, and that night he had a very bad fever, and he was hallucinating. And I said to Bivas, give him an aspirin and shut him up. I want to get some sleep. I was not up for Father of the Year that night. So the next morning we look at him, and his face is all swollen. And it was black and blue. And my wife said, we got to find a doctor. I said, we're going to find a doctor in the middle of the woods in Maine. So she said, well, she said, let's go home. I said, no, we're not going home. We're going to find a doctor here. So we went to the guy that ran the campground. Where's a hospital? So he told us. And we were staying in Brownfield, and the closest place was Bridgeton. And the Bridgeton Hospital, Cape Cod Hospital, was tiny, but this place was even smaller than Cape Cod Hospital. So we go there, and the guy is there, the emergency room doctor says, I can't do anything for him. He needs a specialist. You'll have to take him to Portland. It got even more hysterical. I want to go home. I said, no, we're going to take care of this now. We're going to see this problem. Because I was scared. I didn't know what was the matter with him. This is my little boy here. He's not himself. So we take him to Portland. The guy in Portland says, the specialist there says it's a cellulitis infection. It's close to his brain. It's dangerous. He's going to need surgery, and he's going to be in the hospital for at least 10 days. So I got even more scared because now I think he's going to die if he doesn't have this surgery. So they prep him and they get him all ready for that. And Dibbets calls the church, and the church where she was going that I wasn't really going to that much, didn't really mean anything. Jesus really hadn't taken over completely with me yet, as in stages, if you will. She called the church. They had a healing ministry there. There just happened to be a couple of people in the pastor's office. They all agreed. She laid her hands on my son in the hospital. Now, they had started to give him intravenous antibiotic. The next day, the fever that he had broke after they prayed. The swelling went down, and the third day, he was his fine, bouncy, almost 3-year-old self. And they said, we're going to keep him an extra day. He's fine. He can go home. We just want to keep him under observation for another day. No surgery. Jesus healed my boy. It was a miracle, and I knew it was a miracle, and I knew it even more after Bibbas became a nurse, discovered that the medicine that they gave him could have killed him. It was so strong. So it was a true miracle. So then I felt I have to go to church to thank Jesus for healing my boy. Then the full gospel meeting. That full gospel meeting, then I knew it was him. I knew it was Jesus. And I haven't looked back since then. Now, when I knew that I knew that I knew, I never made an altar call. I knew that Jesus was in my heart now. I knew that he's changing me. And any idea I thought about having a split between my wife and I was over. Jesus put us together. And that was another miracle. And we're still together to this day. And I thank God for that. That's a miracle. All right, but that's, again, the beginning of that, my testimony. I had at the back of my mind, hey, I couldn't be a Roman Catholic priest, but I still feel that there's a call of God on my life to maybe be a minister. a pastor. And at that time, I knew no matter what, I was a servant. That didn't make any difference what you called me. I could care less what you called me. I knew I was a servant. So I had a business at that time, small business, and I've been teaching school for quite a few years now. Jump ahead, and I decide I want to get into business. And I, by the way, after that Full Gospel meeting, I became a member of Full Gospel Businessmen. And I want to put in a little commercial here for Full Gospel, as it's needed more now than it was when I joined in 1980, which was 40 years ago. The men in this country need Jesus even more now than before. And that's why I'm still in that. But I decided that I'm teaching school and working all these other things, and I had my business growing every year. It kept growing. I decided, hey, look, I know my security is in Jesus now. I'm reading the Bible. The Bible is real to me. The first time I opened the book up after the Full Gospel meeting, the words were vibrating on the page, literally shaking on the page. I said, this word is alive. And so now I read it. I started reading it from the front to the end, and I do it every year. I read it through. And I never get tired of reading it. And there's so many things that I learn as I go along. But then I decided at that point that maybe I should have my security is not in the job, it's in Jesus. And I got the business going. I'm going to make a choice. I think I was 40 or getting close to 40 when that magical age in men. And I said, if I don't do it now, I'll probably regret it. And I went to my principal. I said, what do you think if I took a year off, leave of absence to run my business? He said, do that. He says, take a year, and if you find out it isn't for you, you can come back to teaching. No problem. But if you do like it, you can stay out, whatever you want to do. And he was open-minded enough to let me do that. So that's what I did. And then I went into my business, was landscaping maintenance full time. And so it was okay. And that's what I did. And it also gave me more opportunity to be a witness for Jesus Christ. And I found that I'm out on in the world, so to speak. Jesus was in the marketplace, and I'm going to see what happens when I go out in the marketplace as a witness for Christ. And I'll tell one quick story, only because as a landscaper, we have a section of towns called New Seabury, and a lot of high price range homes in the millions. And this was after Hurricane Bob, and there was a woman, 65-year-old woman. She had 2-acre piece of land in New Seabury, right on the water, and she had the hurricane had destroyed the seawall in front of her house. So she had to mortgage her house for $250,000 to rebuild the seawall. But in doing that, she also had to redo the landscaping. So she had gotten some prices from other guys to do the landscaping, and the landscaping quotes were in the thousands. I went there. She called me. I don't know how she got my name. She called me, and I said, "Oh, this is only going to cost you about $400." I said, "There's plants on the property. I can move around and redo what to meet the conservation commission's needs are, and it'll save you money." She says, "Well, you're not like everybody else." Well, it's because that's what I am. That's just the way I am. Well, she came out of the house that day. She had a crutch with the little the 4 legs on the crutch. And I said to her, "What's the matter?" She said, "Well, I hurt my knee." She said, "I have to use the crutch, the cane." So I said, "Do you mind if I pray for you?" And she said, "No." So I just prayed for her. And I kind of, left and came back, and I did the work for her. And she went in the house, whatever. I did the work. Came back another day to collect. I did the work. It's time to get paid. I go in the house, I knock on the door, I go to the house, and she says, she comes to the door, no cane. She's walking without the cane now. Oh, son of a gun. I said, "God healed your knee." She said, "Well, yeah, it's not bothering me." So we're in her kitchen, and she's looking at me, and we're talking, and the subject of the Lord comes up. And I start to tell her about, you have to be born again. She said, I heard about that. And I was watching TV the other night. What does that mean? So the next thing I know, I'm telling her more about how to do this. And she said, "You're glowing." I said, "I know I can't help it. It just happens." And I led her to the Lord right then and there. 6 months later, I prayed for her to help her sell the house, and she sold her house. She got out from under that burden. So that's another one of the many miracles that have happened since then. Other things that we left that church, but prior to leaving that church, the pastor there said, "You seem like you have an interest here." He said, back in the old days, one pastor would take a young man under his wing and give him an education and get him started so he could become a pastor. He says, "Yeah, I want to help you get started." He said, "Right now, you're good for nothing." When I was preaching, it was for nothing. I didn't get paid. I didn't expect to get paid. So I said, "Okay." So he gave me some materials to study and read, and that's what I did. And that kind of got me launched into my other role. And as push comes to shove, we go to another church, and at the recommendation of a friend of mine who was a full gospel brother, he said, "Why don't you try this church?" We go, and it's a friend of, well, turns out the pastor's wife is the woman that got saved the same day as Bibbas did in the store in Sandwich. I don't know how many years, 20, 30 years before. So anyway, we started going to that church. And they came to our house one day, and he said to me, "Are you supposed to be a pastor?" And I said, "Yes, I guess I am." I couldn't duck it any longer. I was running from God and saying, if he wants this to happen, he's going to have to make it happen. So I was officially ordained as a pastor in 2008. I'm still a full gospel businessman, but I'm also a pastor. Right now, we're kind of in hiatus because of COVID, but we're going to see how God leads us from here. From that, I don't know how much time you. I don't want to take up all your time, but I can go. There's other things I can say, but I don't want to take up all the time. What do you think? You're muted.
You're doing great, David. You're doing
Yeah.
great. Why don't you take another 5 minutes, and then
Okay.
we'll take some time to, have comments of
Okay.
appreciation or questions that people may have. So, just, take another 5 minutes, wrap it up, and then
Okay.
we'll go into that phase. Okay.
Interesting thing. We had was it Brendan Fraser? Was at your house? And I read his book and Buchanan, and we had something that happened the same as what happened to him in the book when he was in Africa. Phyllis and I one night were driving in the car and we're going somewhere. There's a rainy night, dark. Police cruiser pulled over on the side of the road. He's got a car pulled over and he's blocking our lane. So I have no choice. I have to go around him. He's not directed traffic or anything. He's got somebody pulled over. So I decided to go into the other lane to pass him. Well, right coming head on is another car. And I was resigned the fact this is over. We're going to have a head-on collision. This guy had nowhere to go. I had nowhere to go. And Bibbas was sitting in the passenger seat. She said, "Jesus." Well, when she said that, I don't know what happened, but we didn't hit him. He didn't hit us. I don't know where he went. I don't know if he went under us or over us or through us. And I don't know if we went through him, but we didn't hit each other and there was no accident. That was like, I said, this is really amazing. So that was one of those crazy things that has happened to us. And I look at it as we have powerful angels looking out for us. When she mentioned Jesus, that's had an effect. What else can I say? What other things can I say? Well, I've been involved in full gospel, as I said, since 1980, and I would really like to see that grow. We're in kind of a transition, I think, right now. I'd like to see that, because it's still a vital ministry, still very much needed today. And it takes one man to reach out to another man. I've also been involved in a ministry to senior citizens in a nursing home, and I've been involved in the jail ministry, and that's been put on hold since March. We haven't been able to go to that. Another brother and myself go to the prison, and we've had many different exciting things happen there. At least since we've been going the last couple of years, at least 70 some odd men have been saved. And we had a baptism one day, and we had there's no water. I mean, you can't bring water in, not even a bottle of water. But the chaplain there said, there's a guy that you prayed for a couple of weeks ago that wants to get baptized. And I prayed with him. He was in a wheelchair, and he got out of his wheelchair when he went back to his room and walked around his room. And the nurse at the jail said, you shouldn't do that. So God healed him, and he wanted to get baptized. So he comes in that particular day, and he's not in his wheelchair. And he says, I want to get baptized. And the chaplain gives me a coffee cup of water, a little plastic coffee cup of water. So I said, okay, come on up. When he comes up, and we baptize him, in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, right? Well, 6 other guys popped their hands up. Can I do that too? Can I do that too? Can I do that too? And then my brother, the other full gospel guy, says, can I get involved in this? I said, of course, come on. So we baptized 7 guys there. Now, the funny part about this is the other miracle was there was as much water in the glasses when we started as when we finished. As when we started, there was much in the water glass when we finished as when we started. So it was like, someplace where we couldn't even get water, we had more than enough. That's how God works. So I guess that's about all I want to share. And I just give the guys some thinking that you can't earn your salvation. Jesus is the one that did all the work. And no matter what sins we've committed, he's forgiven us. And I'm so grateful for what he's done in my life. I look forward to working with him in the future. As much time as I have left, I'm going to work for him. So that's where it's all at for me.
I don't know, David, for a tough Italian man, you're a sweet guy. You really are. That was really a delicious story. It was just so kind and gentle, and I'm so pleased that you're where you're at. So let's just open this to whomever would like to, either applaud you or ask you a question. Whoever has anything to say, please go ahead and do that. Just unmute yourself. I know everybody was touched in some way by what David shared, so go ahead. Pat, you got something going?
Yeah, we always got something going. Being a fellow full gospel businessman, I tell you, I love to hear that testimony, David. There's something about a testimony that just brings out the truth of the way a man walks, and your tenderheartedness and the way you delivered the message tonight was just so inspiring. I kind of like I run the I've taken over for Jim Buford a year ago, and I'm president of the luncheon group, and so I can really relate to what you're saying about how full gospel businessmen's played an important part in your life, because the same things happened to me. So, and to hear how you got saved, and you were a school teacher, and you said you kind of moved out to the business world, and you started your landscaping business, and it gave you more personal one-on-one contact with people, and to hear that story, that lady down in after that hurricane hit and you fixing her properties, all about how one man can really touch other people, and the outreach is possible. So you've emboldened me tonight to keep us going. Thank you so much for your testimony, David. It was a real blessing. God bless you, man.